Battlefield 1 took a bit of a risk when it went back in time to the First World War, but all in all it was very well received, especially by gamers who've become jaded by the recent abundance of futuristic shooters. The success of that game looks like it triggered a resurgence of first-person shooters based on historic warfare, because there are a few on the horizon now, including the next Call of Duty, which is rumoured to be set in World War II. It would be easy then to lump Bulkhead Interactive's Battalion 1944 in with that group and say it's just jumping on Battlefield 1's bandwagon. But it's important to note that it's not necessarily the setting that they're trying to imitate, rather it's the unique feel of old school shooters that the team really wants to nail. So if you've missed the days when shooters were simple and success relied more on skill and reflexes than on perks, supply drops and kill streaks, here are 5 reasons why Battalion 1944 will scratch your old school shooter itch. The developers of Battalion 1944 have been playing first-person shooters for years, and they list their inspirations as the original America's Army, Battlefield 1942, Battlefield 2, and the first Call of Duty. The biggest inspiration of all, though, was the multiplayer portion of Call of Duty 2, and they've spent a load of time reverse engineering its animations to get the feel of the weaponry just right. Around a third of their design time has been taken up with getting the feel of the Kar 98K just right, as it's one of the defining guns from Call of Duty 2. They did this by breaking down and then replicating the original animation to give it that satisfying snap when you aim down the sight. It's not just animations that they've recreated though, it's other small things that bring back the feel of older FPS games like strafe jumping, which came from a bug in the Call of Duty engine, and that moment when you jump from a building and get stuck for a second, something that was originally done to stop the bunny hopping bug you get in the Quake engine. Basically, it's those little imperfections that give you that old school feel that Bulkhead are trying to recreate, and so far it all feels really good to play. While the full list of weapons is currently under wraps, you can see from this gameplay that it features classic weapons from the World War II era. These are weapons that any veteran Call of Duty player will recognise, like the aforementioned Kar 98K and the MP40 for the German side, and the M1 Garand and the M1A1 Thompson for the US side. Each team has its own specific sidearm, plus smoke and frag grenades to play with as well, so expect any other featured weapons to be just as authentic. To get the game feeling as old school as possible, Bulkhead have also taken the time to mimic the way the guns handled recoil in past Call of Duties. If you want to make a competitive shooter based on old school games like Call of Duty 2, then one of the things you really need to nail is the level design. So far, only 5 maps have been announced, including one based on the D-Day landings and one based on a French village in Burgundy. The map shown in this gameplay was inspired by Brecourt Manor in Normandy. It features, among other things, a series of trenches to run through, piles of discarded shells from howitzer guns to take cover behind, old French barns to set up sniping positions within, and of course you can also run around inside the manor itself. Just be careful not to fall out of one of the windows and sprain an ankle. Without all the wall running, double jumping and rocket boosting that modern gamers are used to, people will need to be creative with the environment if they want to get a good vantage point over their opponents. That's something that will be familiar to anyone who played shooters back in the day. Bulkhead have made it so people who explore their surroundings enough will be able to find plenty of shortcuts and otherwise hard to reach areas that can be used to their advantage. Battalion 1944 strips the competitive gameplay back to its basic components, whilst still offering some modern additions that Bulkhead hope will keep people coming back for more. That means you won't be seeing things like perks, killstreak bonuses, or in-game airdrops, but there will be visual unlocks and skins up for grabs. Currently, these unlocks will be awarded every time you level up and will give you 2 to 4 items of varying rarity, which you'll be able to use to customise your soldiers. These items will include things like melee weapons, helmets, weapon engravings, victory poses, war cries, and player icons, which means there's plenty to play for, but nothing that will give players an extra edge on the battlefield. If you can't be bothered to grind for skins though, it's looking likely that Bulkhead will be adding the option to buy them microtransaction style in the full release. Obviously, microtransactions are a bit of a dirty word to some people, but there's a good reason for their inclusion. It'll help fund future DLC like the addition of British and Russian troops and, of course, new maps. Basically, they want to add new, free, regular content in the same way that games like Overwatch and CSGO do for their user bases. So you may be thinking to yourself, hold on Ian, you big sexy lump, if Bulkhead are just recreating Call of Duty 2, why shouldn't I just go play Call of Duty 2? Well, first up, thanks for calling me sexy. And secondly, they're working on a bunch of back-end stuff like matchmaking, networking, and a ranking system that they're hoping will bring the game more in line with something like CSGO in terms of online play. Of course, Battalion will include the classic modes you used to be able to play in Call of Duty 2, but the extra back-end stuff here should deliver all of that, but with the conveniences we're used to from modern online gaming. Bulkhead do have at least one new game mode planned though, and it sounds really interesting. Details are slim at the moment and there's no name for it yet, but supposedly it's built around a search and destroy mechanic. It's been described as having a really big mix of features, with every round containing a lot of cool clutch moments, but with an overarching attrition that means teams will have to be smart with their class picks. For instance, in the first round you could fill your team with 5 snipers, but once they're gone, so by the final round you'd be limited to close range or mid-range fighters only. So there we go, that's as much as we know about Battalion 1944 for now, but don't worry, there's a closed alpha due sometime near the end of May, so you should be able to make your very own old school soft rock kill montages like this one I've made right here in no time. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more stuff from Eurogamer, don't forget to like, subscribe, and perhaps check out some of our other videos that are on screen now. Goodbye.